Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Behind the Curtain. My name is Carly, and I'm going to be your moderator for today. If you're watching with us live, then welcome. And we encourage you to participate by sending any questions and comments you have into our chat room below. If you're watching with us after hours, again, welcome, but we still encourage you to participate by sending any comments on our YouTube channel, or you can email any feedback to info@majestictheater.com. And without further ado, I would love to introduce Myka and Danny.
Hey
Hi,
there.
guys.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for being
Thanks,
with us
Carly.
today.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks for joining in, tuning in, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Behind the Curtain at the Majestic with the guest tonight, the lovely Myka Plunkett. Couple of quick notes. Right now, I believe we have James and the Giant Peach streaming, Majestic Children's Theater production. And my guest next week, Elvis, will be in the building. My good friend Ray Gilmet will be the guest on Behind the Curtain next week. So you might want to tune in for that. Let's see. Oh, and you know, all of these episodes of Behind the Curtain and these children's theater productions, they have been archived, and you can get to any or all of them through our website. Okay, so hi, Myka.
Hey, Danny. How's it going?
Hey, wait a second. You got your coffee mug?
I do. Shall we cheers?
Your Johnny guitar?
I do. I've got my Johnny guitar mug.
All right, toast?
Toast. I see
There
that
we go.
Stephen Sands is here with us, so toast to Stephen as well.
Yeah, good. So here's the first question. You know, this life we enjoy, you know, how did you come to it? How did you fall into it, as it were?
Oh, into the theater.
Yeah.
Well, if we're going all the way back, when I was very little, I had an aunt who was a real card, and she had a performance troupe called Signs of Music. We did performances for deaf audiences. I did sign language as a 4-year-old in a troupe for a brief time. And then when I was 7, I started doing work as a clown with my mother. So we became a little clown duo for many years. So that's kind of how I got started. And then found stage work later, you know, through school. And I think Peter Pan was the first thing I saw live on stage. And I was shaken and had to get in on it.
So, and that was back home. We should tell the folks where home is or was.
Oh, sure. Well, I now live, of course, in Northampton, but I'm originally from Oklahoma. Who'd have guessed it? Maybe you would have guessed it because of Johnny Guitar. But yeah, I came from Oklahoma all the way up here via various connections. But the person who really brought me to Northampton and to the Valley was Janine Haas, who, if you're a Majestic longtime audience member, Janine is a wonderful theater maker in the Valley. And she is originally from Oklahoma as well. And I met her in upstate New York doing some theater. Also, I see my friend Robert Forget, who does theater in upstate New York and was in the production I'm talking about, is watching tonight, which is exciting. But anyway, I've been here for about 8 years now, and I love it. I'm not going anywhere.
I had forgotten that Janine is an Okie.
Yeah.
But, you know, Janine was also our very first equity hire. Way back when, and I think it was The Winter's Tale, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that. Way back when. Yeah.
Nice. You made a solid choice.
So that actually got you to New England or New York State, or?
It did, yeah. I have a sibling that I didn't grow up with who lived in Cambridge, New York at the time, and I got to know her while I was living in New York City. Through family circumstances and some unfortunate tales, I left the city and went to Cambridge, New York to play my first and only silent role in a stage production of Amadeus. That Janine was directing. So it was exciting. And that's how I came to be here eventually.
It's interesting because what is that theater company? Because I did see that production.
You did?
Yeah, I did.
Oh my gosh. Hubbard Hall.
Hubbard Hall, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it. Beautiful little space.
Yeah. I just remember it was trying to GPS and drive there from, it was like, oh my God, I don't know where.
It's an enchanting drive to the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, right. But I don't remember you from that production.
Shame.
I should have, but I remember you from Laughter on the 23rd Floor.
Yeah.
Up at New Century Theater. And did we figure out what that line was? Because there was one line in that play that you delivered that really struck me, and it was like, oh, I got to check this actress out.
Oh my goodness, that was a great show. That was my first show at New Century Theater, and I played the role that Kate Damon played when they did it earlier in their lineage. Anyway.
It was a repeat then.
It was a repeat. It had been 14 years, I think, since they had done it. And I was new on the scene and one of only 2 females in the cast, of course, because it's about the writing era of the Sid Caesar show. And there was 1 female writer on the comedy team, which is true to the real time that it took place. So my character was a real spitfire.
Yeah, right. So
you cast me to play someone in a coma next, which I think is a very interesting.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, this was like, yeah. I tracked you down and offered you a role for a woman that spends virtually the entire play in a hospital bed.
I laid with my eyes open on stage for an hour and a half. I'm a very good actor.
For those of you who may not know, that was a production of Iris,
a beautiful play,
which was also a play that I wrote.
It's not a funny play, as much as we're laughing. It was a beautiful and important, serious tale.
Yeah. That it's funny when I do a playwriting workshop. One of the things we talk about is source material. How do you get inspired? Where do you find these things to write about? And that story was actually a New York Times article that just stuck with me about a young woman, freshman college student from Cornell, who was in a terrible, terrible car accident. She survived her physical injuries, but she was essentially, what's the term? Brain dead, I guess, right? But her parents, who were pretty devout Catholic, could not bring themselves to pull the plug, although doctors kept telling them there was no hope. But anyway, she's in a critical care facility, long-term facility, for 9 years, and all of a sudden she comes up pregnant.
Right.
So that was the story that just kind of, whacked me in the forehead, and I thought, what could you do with that?
And you thought, who would look really compelling, laying still with her eyes open on stage? And you picked me.
Right.
Thank you, Danny.
So what this is kind of a little bit of an unfair question, but do you have a favorite Majestic show? Not necessarily one that you've been in, or could be one you've been in, or others that you've seen.
I was really, really moved by Alabama Story when I saw it at the Majestic just a couple of seasons ago, right?
Yeah.
I thought every element, and there's so many beautiful shows, but every element of that show was so gorgeous. The set design, the lighting, the costumers outdid themselves, and the play was beautiful. And I thought Kate Damon and Jack and Rand, they brought such an incredible core to that play. I really thought it was lovely.
Yeah, I'm trying to think who the writer is. I'm having a little bit of a blank.
Yeah.
But that was another source material from, I think, the New York Times originally that inspired him to dig into that story. Yeah.
It was beautiful. If I was being selfish, if I was saying a show I was in, I thought Johnny Guitar was a really like funny, strange romp with like a play that was really a nod to an era as opposed to about the story you were watching being told. It was more about old Hollywood and Joan Crawford and the old Western movies that that hold a very odd and dear place in my heart. So that was exciting.
Yeah, I mean, the Western movies hold a dear place in my heart too.
Yeah.
I have to say, I did. There's some pictures.
There it is. There's Steven Sands. And it's Michael's birthday today. Michael Garcia there.
He's the fellow up in behind.
The beautiful blue shirt. It's his birthday. Happy birthday, Michael.
Yep. Happy birthday.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yep.
You were the director. You tell me if it was fun.
No, it was. It was interesting it's always interesting to put these shows together in the Majestic for me, and I've always say, we have to fit these shows into the Majestic. It's a very intimate space. The stage is not too big. We don't really have wings, and so it presents presents challenges. But it's nice to take these challenges on. I enjoyed it.
Fun. I thought it was really fun.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's different, I haven't done this in years, but for me to direct a play on a proscenium stage with a
sure,
would be like, oh my God, this is like boring or something. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, the Majestic is it's an unusual shaped stage. It's technically a thrust.
Yeah.
But even that, it's not really. It's very intimate. For something that has a balcony, it's like we're all tucked into a living room together.
Yeah. Yep. And then let's see what else. Then we recruited you for the holiday show.
Indeed.
Yeah. How many of those have you done now?
I've done 3, which is a lot of fun. Yeah. I love the holidays, and I think that those shows are such a treat. And Mitch Shakur, of course, as everyone that comes to the Majestic knows, is he's an angel. He's solid gold. Oh, look at those beautiful.
Oh, there we go.
Aren't they nice? We look like we like each other.
Yeah.
Those are such fun. And actually, my favorite thing, and I'm saying this to set you up for next week, Danny, but also because I mean it, Ray, who is the lovely and local Elvis on the scene, is not, he will say himself, an actor, right? So he comes into these Christmas shows and he's utterly himself, and he's too easy to mess with on stage. I get a real kick out of giving him a hard time because we're supposed to banter
right.
back and forth, and the Christmas show is kind of extra fun for that reason. Yeah.
He's not an actor, although many years ago he did one show with us. Was it Leader of the Pack? It was sort of a jukebox kind of show. But that was a new experience for him.
I love it. I'd love to see him in another play.
It'd be interesting, for that play that he did years ago. I mean, he had to cut his hair, and it was like a very different sort of look. 50s haircut, not sideburns and not DA and not a spit curl. Very much.
I bet he felt exposed.
Yeah. Is there, is there? Well, it could be. Is there a show that you have like really a personal connection with that you've done or you would love to do? Or
Oh, yeah. I mean, well, those are a couple of very different categories. Shows that I haven't done. I really I want to do, and now I'm blanking. What is the play called? Oh my goodness! But it's the story of Katharine Hepburn. It's she in the audience.
Philadelphia Story, or
no, it's like Tea with Kate or something.
oh, okay.
Faye Dunaway did it recently in the Boston area, I think. Boy, I'd love to take a crack at that play. Katharine Hepburn is such she's beautiful and complicated and exciting, and anyway, that's something. No, I did Cat on a Hot Tin Roof a while back with Tom Dahl, who's another Majestic regular actor who's a love, directed by my good friend Toby Bercovici. And that play gave me a run for my money. It's Tennessee Williams.
Yeah.
And talk about somebody who wrote drama in this like beautiful, really real way, but so heightened and so intense. He set these characters up for like the biggest event of their lives, and then gave the audience the treat of putting them in a pressure cooker and letting you watch them scramble for like purchase on their lives. I just, such a monster of a play. So beautiful.
Yeah.
You saw it. We did okay.
Yeah, I did see it. Yeah. And I'm actually thinking about once we get to our 25th season, our full season, I'm actually thinking about a Tennessee Williams for that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They're great. All of his plays are they're just so engaging. They're so raw, I think.
Yeah. Probably Menagerie, Glass Menagerie.
Oh.
So we'll see.
That little trifle.
But, it was interesting. I was talking to some folks today, and we have this contract with Actors Equity. And Actors Equity, for you folks who may not know, is the union of professional union for actors and stage managers. And as a good union will, they are not going to allow theaters to produce until they give the okay that their actors can go back.
Sure.
So
we're in strange times.
We are indeed. So while we have sort of set tentatively January 9th as a reopening date for the Majestic, but who knows, that may not be able to happen. So so would you say Cat is the most challenging role you've done?
Maggie the Cat. Maybe. It's either her or I did a production of, it was called The Life and Death of Queen Margaret. And it was all Shakespeare text, but that had been extrapolated and recentered. It was all the histories around the woman who was married to Henry VI, Margaret of Anjou. And gosh, her life was a monster of a tale. She was incredible. And she stayed with me. I really felt an incredible responsibility to that story, because it was a story that was buried inside of a very male history. And she was this very fascinating woman who frightened men. I mean, if I'm just boiling her down, she was an incredible leader. And her husband was catatonic for 2 years of his kingship during the 100 Years' War between France and England. And she led the armies, and she was amazing. And she was, what is the word? Reviled. She was just totally spat upon in history as being, being this harsh, terrible woman with the heart of a tiger. And she was she was just doing an incredible job leading a country that, wasn't even hers, that she married into. I just thought she was incredible, and she really rocked me.
Yeah. Well, getting back to briefly to Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, the entire first act is essentially Maggie monologue, right?
Yeah, 27 pages, and she's almost talking to herself the entire time.
Yeah.
In her nightgown.
Yeah.
Or slip. Anyway, I'm being generous to call it a nightgown.
So, so you think Queen Margaret was their most challenging, and then Maggie the cat?
Yeah, I think so. I think they were the two most invigorating women I've ever had the chance to play. Yeah.
Well, maybe we have a question from somebody in the audience, and maybe this will be another invigorating woman.
What's that?
Go ahead, Carly.
It looks like Lee Chambers is here with us today. Question for Myka. In Iris, your character was so ethereal. How did you shape her to become that on stage?
Oh,
thank you, Lee, for asking such a great question.
That's a great question. She was rather ethereal. Well, Danny wrote that character in a really interesting way structurally, right? I introduced the play to the audience, and then rather took on the audience's perspective, I think, as an actor on stage who couldn't affect the action as someone in a coma, but who you were ever aware. You were so constantly aware of my inertness that anytime Danny wrote a moment where a character, a person would come into this hospital room and imagine an encounter that they so strongly longed for, I would engage them suddenly. I would become this active presence for them and only them in that small moment, and then go in like amazingly sad way. I don't know. I think it was a beautiful and strange little tale, but I don't think I can take credit for the etherealness. I think that was the structure, or because I'm so pale. I'm not sure.
Thanks, Lee Chambers, for dialing in. Hey, all right. So we have to ask this question. It comes up every week, and then anytime we do a talk back.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's funny. Audiences are actually interested in this. I mean, they.
What is it?
They want to know, how do you learn all those lines? It's kind of it is an interesting question. After all, I mean, it seems kind of like, this is sort of a dumb question, but it's not. It's really an interesting question.
Well, I'll get real artsy fartsy on you for a minute. For me, I think theater, I think what we're all missing right now in this, through the lens of today, this quarantine and COVID world that we're living in, we're craving the thing that theater gives us, which is this very real, breathing connection in which we're allowed to witness someone's life. That's how I feel about theater. And there's this collective breath between the actors, between the audience, and for me, between myself and the story. So whenever I'm cast in a role, whenever I get a script, I just read it first to find its whole story, and try not to do what my instructors in college affectionately always called the actor bad habit of flipping through the script and saying bullshit, bullshit, my line, bullshit, bullshit, my line. Right? But reading the story that is the play. And I try to find its truths first. I try to circle all of the moments that like state a bold truth. And I think those are really good anchoring points for an actor. Right? Because you can have the same conversation. You could have it 20 different times and it would sound a little different every time, but there's essences, there are core moments that have to be there. That doesn't really answer how I memorize lines though. I think your lines are connected to your breath. I know I in Kate's interview, right, you all were talking about this, and she said that, she waits until she gets blocking, right, the movement associated with the scene. And I feel similarly. The story has to be inside your body before you can memorize it. But if I'm being just really technical, to memorize lines, I write them out. That does something for my brain. And then I have to speak them aloud with my head up at like full spoken volume at home by myself. Because what happens, I do this with my high school students. I direct musicals in high school sometimes, and it's funny because I'm not a teacher, but I'm an actor. But I tell them, you have to practice your lines with your eyes up as if you have a scene partner, because if you don't and you blank on stage or something goes wrong and all of a sudden your brain scrambles, you'll do whatever it is you practiced in your living room. And if you practice looking down at your script and reading and covering and reading, then when you blank, you'll look down, right? Which will show the whole audience that you forgot what you're doing.
Right.
So I look up at a wall or an object in the room, and I speak to it at my full voice. And then if I'm on stage and something goes wrong and someone blanks or I blank, I just have to like look ahead of me and take a big breath. And usually the words come spilling out. So far.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's that helpful, but there's a flow, there's a syntax to your character, and you get to know it and you start to think like them, you know, or at least
it's interesting though. You know, I've asked this question of everyone, and everyone's answers have been somewhat different, and they have their own perspective. But that's of course part of the fascination too for me as a director. As an example, you know, you put a cast together, and you know, lots of times those actors are meeting one another for the first time. You know, sometimes they've worked with someone else in the cast in another show, you know, 2 years ago, or but it's a whole new sort of mixing pot. And you know, people have different processes, different way of working. And you know, they come to things within the story or within a script at different points of time. And sometimes you just have to sit back and wait for an actor to find something.
Sure.
You know, sometimes they just stumble into it, you know, which is actually a good thing to see happen. But you know, it is a fascinating process, and you know, learning lines plays into all of that as well, of course.
Sure.
You know.
Sure.
We actually got it. We got many years ago. We got into a little bit of talking about learning lines. We got into a little bit of trouble with equity, because I think it was Bus Stop was the show, right? And so we had a really nice cast for the show, and the director wanted to reach out to everybody, you know, before we started rehearsal, and he just sent like a little email and said, "Hi, you know, I'm going to be your director, and you know, really looking forward to this, and you know, if you can, you know, come with your lines learned, right?" So one of the equity actors decided that that was actually a directive from the director. And so, you know, he filed a complaint with equity, and he should have gotten paid for an extra weeks to lines. You know, we did a big dance around on that one for a while. But, you know.
Well, being familiar with your lines and having your lines memorized are not the same.
No.
Oh, by the way, I saw that Zoya joined on. Zoya, who directs at the Majestic from time to time and directed An Inspector Calls. Hello, Zoya.
Hi, Zoya.
It's nice that you're here.
Are you asking a question, or are you just tuning in?
Just saying hi. This is fun. It's like we're hanging out.
Yeah.
I brought pie so that in case I felt the need to snack.
We do have another audience question if you would like it. I think it's a good follow-up after the how do you learn all those lines.
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess I'll call you Steve.
Hey,
what was
Steve.
the most difficult vocal part of any Majestic show you had to learn?
Oh. Good question. That's a good question. Well, I mean, I've only done a few musicals there, right? And the Christmas show, but Johnny Guitar, even though it's named after the male character, is very, very central, centered around the character of Vienna, who I played, and she carried a lot of vocal weight. And she sang. Her songs were written in the style of a belt, of kind of a pop belt, which is a technique where you put where you kind of backward funnel your voice. I won't get into the technicalities of it, but it puts more pressure on your vocal cords, and it's a popular sound in modern music. It's very different from classic music theater, which is more traditionally written for the voice as a traditional instrument. So modern music has taken it and done something that's a lot harder to sustain for singers. And I slept a lot during that show. Michael Garcia, whose birthday is today, who was in the show, was just getting to know me then and thought I was like a really healthy, health guru, because I had like a yoga mat in our dressing room, and I had like all these things to like counter inflammation and turmeric pills. And, but it was because I was really fighting to keep my body healthy, because it was a really hard. Oh, there we are. Look at that. Oh, Steven, you look so mad. But she was really vocally demanding, and we did how many performances a week, Danny? I mean, like 8, 8, depending on the doubles. Yeah. And it was it gave me a run for my money. We ran it for 7 weeks, 6 weeks.
6 anyway, maybe 7.
I can't remember, but she was the biggest thing to work on so far. I look forward to the next challenge.
That kind of leads into another question here, and what do you do to keep a show fresh for 7 weeks, let's say, particularly like Johnny Guitar, which was a vocal challenge, but it was also kind of a physical challenge as well. It's not a very sedentary play.
No, not at all. Every actor handles this differently, I think. But for me, I lean a lot on, I do a lot of body work. And so whenever I'm doing a show, I try to find all the places that the character lives in my body that feels different from how I normally operate. So that I have something when I warm up and when I stretch and when I find my true neutral. I have little places to go, little pockets of body and self that I can like slip into, and it's like a little hello each night for my character, and it's like, there I am, there you are. So I try to, thresholding is the term that I always look toward in theater. I try to threshold into the story so that I'm really present with my co-actors. And can I tell one ornery story that I think I'm not supposed to tell, but I feel like I feel like you guys will enjoy this. When I was in an Inspector Calls at the Majestic, how many years ago, Danny? 5?
Oh my God, I don't think it was that long ago.
I might have been. I think it was before I was married. I can't remember. 4 or 5 years ago.
Zoya,
with Kate Damon. Yeah, Zoya, tell me how long ago it was. And also she says she wants to direct me in Sweeney Todd. Danny, we got to talk about this. I agree. We'll get to it. No, one night we were in the dressing room before the show, and it was Kate Damon and I and Ginger Carson, who was in the cast as well. And you get to know people when you share a dressing room for 6 weeks. You talk about everything. And one night while Kate was putting on her wig, which we affectionately called the baby gerbil wig, because it looked like sort of like a little nest of baby gerbils. I said, gosh, I get so frustrated sometimes during Act 2, Kate. I was like, I'm always supposed to get to such an emotional place. My character is supposed to have like a big epiphany, right? About who she is as a human in the world and how she views society and how privileged she is. And she's supposed to kind of convict her family, right? With this blatant mirroring of like, look at us for what we are, you know, big, beautiful moment. For which Zoya always reminded me that it was hard. And that's why the woman who did it on Broadway most recently won the Tony, because it's hard. It's a hard role.
It's hard.
It was hard. And so some nights I'd get frustrated and I'd say, I just can't cry on stage. And Kate very nonchalantly turned around to me from her spot in the mirror and said, I can. And she said, I'll do it. And that night, in one of those scenes in Act 2, she picked a very subtle moment, but a moment when she knew I was across the stage and had to turn and give a very dramatic look to her. And I did my moment and I turned and I looked, and she just turned her head ever so slightly and one tear just rolled down her cheek. And I was like, dadgum her. She's so controlled. She's so good. And that always made me laugh. But you keep the show fresh in those kinds of ways, right? And like struggling for your honesty and talking to your scene partner.
How about a double?
Oh, when the show happens twice in a day.
Yeah.
I think we pray a lot more on those days, even those of us actors without faith. For me, it's stretching and breathing, and drinking a lot of water. I have to hydrate like a crazy person to get through a double show day. I sleep like a dead person after it's over.
I've always, personally, I've always liked that second show. Any of the double days, I've always liked that second show because I think, you know, the first show is a warm up, and the second show is much more nuanced.
That's a dangerous thing to say, Danny. I have to have every show be nuanced. I can't afford a warm up. There's an audience of 200 people.
But, you know, we look at it from a slightly different perspective. Here's Zoya, at least 5 years ago, she says.
I thought so. So.
There's a picture. From
look at us. Aren't we beautiful? I love JT in the front there in his inspector's coat.
Yeah.
He's a goofy man who talks to squirrels. I just love that in the audience sees him with a lot of gravity and authority on stage. He's very commanding. And in his real life, he's a funny character of a human who like talks to squirrels. I love him.
Yeah. Let's see what else I have on my list. So favorite actors or designers you've worked with?
Oh, that's a fun question. I think the Majestic is really lucky in their costumers. I think Don McKay and Christine Thompson is her last name?
Thompson, yep.
I'm so bad with last names. I never use them. They are such loving costumers. And I mean that in the respect that they really they enjoy lending something to the actor and giving us extra tools to work with on stage. You know, the clothes are they're really a gift. I really love them. And they're so nurturing backstage. In Johnny Guitar, I changed clothes so many times backstage, running upstairs, that sparkly dress from the opening with like a sequined sausage casing. It was very difficult to change in and out of. But they took care of everything so lovingly. You always could count on it, you know? It didn't have to be a stressful part because I knew that part was always taken care of. Gosh, I don't know. I always love working with Kate. I think she is so honest with herself on stage. And I think she leaves a lot of space for you as a co-actor. And I think that's something that's difficult to do, to both know within the script where it is your moment to engage the audience and where it's your moment to create beautiful framework and to give your energy to someone else as an actor, I think is hard to do. And I think she's really good at it. So,
well, talking about favorites still, how about a favorite costume or prop?
I really like when I get to eat on stage. Actually, Danny, I'm glad we're talking about this. All of my favorite props, I think, have been given to me usually when I was at New Century Theater because I got to eat a lot in their plays for whatever reason. I don't know why I was always cast as someone who was eating, but it gives me great pleasure on stage. In all seriousness, I love as an actor to be given a prop always, but to be given food in particular, I think is a real gift because it's so grounding. It's so real. You can't fake the kind of person you are while you eat. It's so base. It's so who you are that you can't help but be more present and honest, which is why I snack during rehearsal, actually. I snack a lot while I rehearse because it keeps me from getting too locked up and judgmental of my own process. So I just eat so that I'm distracted so I can work.
Well, that's it. That's really very interesting. You know, that's a technique you might want to record or something. You know,
that's why I have pie here. I was like, what if I like need to snack so I can like relax?
Yeah. How about Carly?
On the topic of costumes, I just wanted to ask you about this. You sent me this picture earlier.
Oh,
this lovely costume.
Oh my goodness. I did send you this because I was hoping there's a question later that about what I'm going to do to keep busy during quarantine. But these three gals here, it's a beautiful drag show that Egg Tooth Productions in Greenfield puts on different iterations of Mr. Drag. And I play the youngest drag sister. I'm the blonde there with the empty martini glass. And we're doing a show in the fall that's quarantine style. The three drag sisters stuck in a home together. And they're very fabulous and exciting women. So I sent that picture because it makes me laugh. Anyway.
Good one.
The martini glass is a good prop.
So let's see, what were we talking? It's like bloopers. Any
bloopers?
Any great bloopers?
Ones I've caused or ones I've helped fix?
Either or.
Let's see. A couple of them are springing to mind. Also during an Inspector Calls, there was one night on stage, I don't remember how it happened, but JT cut his hand on something and he was bleeding a fair bit. And I was the only character who was leaving the stage, and we were like sweating about it off stage because JT wasn't going to get to leave for a while. And I, with my old clown training and my magic skills, I palmed a Band-Aid that had already been peeled and had like some Neosporin on it. And when I came back in, I really fought hard to indicate to JT in a gentle, subtle way that I had a Band-Aid for him without showing the audience, who's on three sides of us. And I sat it down near the decanter with the liquor in it, next to the telephone, because I was like, doesn't he have a telephone call? Or something. And I was like, he'll get it. And he never did. He continued to bleed until he finally got to make an exit and put his own Band-Aid on. So then there was just a Band-Aid on stage for the rest of the show. I thought I was being really helpful. I wonder if anyone in the audience noticed that I was carrying a Band-Aid around so cleverly. I hope not. I don't know. You know what else? This isn't a true blooper, but it's something the audience, I wonder what they're privy to. The backstage is so close to the audience at the Majestic. So when you're backstage, if anything startling happens and you should happen to exclaim, sometimes the audience might catch wind of it. And there was one night we had a dummy body in Johnny Guitar, right? The dead brother of of Bethany's character. Right, and right. Steve Sands knows the story where I'm going. It was laying on a bench for most of the show. And one day somebody got the bright idea to stand the dummy up in the bathroom instead, because it would take up less space. And then the guys who were changing costumes all the time would have more space. But I didn't know it had been moved. And I have a secret fear of like going into a public bathroom and there being someone lying in wait. It's just a psychological whatever. I watch too many crime dramas. But I went into the bathroom and saw a man standing in the corner by the sink, and I screamed during the middle of the show. I hope no one heard it, but I was genuinely terrified, and I screamed backstage.
I'll bet the audience heard it.
So
I know we used to we'd sit out there.
Steven
You
stood
know,
out. See,
as we're doing run throughs, or we're in the dress rehearsal process, and there's always kind of stuff that production week. There's something that new that we get thrown at the actors every night. And so there's always like a lot of talk backstage going on. And then if people have house entrances, they have to go out the side door and around down the alley and
maybe it's raining.
The other door, and they let the doors slam. It's like,
yeah. Fun.
Hey, we have to talk about this.
What?
Aurora, I don't know if Aurora's checked in here or not, or she's listening, but you were talking about all the backstage and how well organized it is, and that is really the bailiwick of our friend Aurora, who just
she's the best.
She's the best. She's so great. And not only can she run the backstage, but she makes a pretty damn good sort of comatose
body double.
Because
my first show at the Majestic, where I was cast to play a coma patient, I had to miss the first week of rehearsal because I was in Hawaii visiting my little sister. And when I came back and met everyone for the first time, I was introduced to Aurora as my body double, as the person who had been lying on stage in a coma for me for a week. She had a lot of good pointers.
And she did not let you forget that.
No, she did right by me in that week that I missed.
Yeah. Well, so what are you doing? What are you doing with yourself and for yourself through this whole quarantine process? Are you working at all anywhere? Or?
I work part-time at Small Oven Bakery in East Hampton, where this pie came from, which is a real blessing. It's really good to be there and have something productive to be doing. They're a great place to be. But theater-wise, I'm doing a Zoom play next week that a local playwright wrote. Harley Erdman, he wrote a little short play that's going to go up next Friday through Rise Up Productions. So that's exciting. And it's been a strange challenge rehearsing over Zoom and trying to figure out like what is theater, right? Can you do theater through your computer? So that's been something. And then I'll do the drag show, the Mr. Drag, the Drag Sisters, actually. Wish You Were Here, Wish You Were There. It's going to be really funny.
So how are you going to do that? Is that going to be online as well?
It will be online. That's going to be recorded. And what we'll do is we'll do part of it at the Shea Theater without an audience. And we'll do part of it in his apartment and in the set that we'll fashion to be the Drag Sisters' home. So it'll be like kind of an interesting video experience, which it's different than live theater. It's not quite the same when you can't breathe together to make this kind of work. It's a very strange caveat.
Yeah, for sure.
But we're working on it. We're doing it.
That'd be interesting. So, do you have? You say you direct high school plays, high school musicals, and do you have advice for young aspiring actors? I mean, what would you tell them about the life?
Okay, what would I say to young aspiring actors? I would say acting for me is an ever evolving creature. And it's a relationship, I think, theater is. And there's a saying that the theater is a demanding mistress. And it permeates all these different parts of your life. There's nothing sacred, I think, if you really get involved with your work. And so my advice would be to be a really healthy version of yourself and to constantly make sure your instrument, which is you, is well tended. Because if you're not centered and healthy, you'll be hard pressed to have a healthy creative process and to be a good scene partner. So I think it's a real treat. It keeps you honest to do theater, I think. And I'd say watch people that you admire and try to put your finger on what it is that speaks to you about their performance, like watch. I think imitating is a really solid way for a young person to begin, right? Is to emulate and replay scenes and rewatch movies that you thought were compelling. Watch them a second time and a third time and say, like, why did that grab me? I think asking questions is the best way to get into making theater. I ask a lot of questions, don't I, Danny?
Yes, as a matter of fact, you do.
I do. I ask a lot of questions when I work.
You have that. It's part of your reputation.
I think it's an exploration. I want to unpack the script every day.
Yeah. Let's see. I get a message here from from Carly, rather. I know Myka mentioned that she wanted to go back to Zoya's Sweeney Todd question.
Oh, just to say that I thank you. Zoya would be a beautiful director for Sweeney Todd, Danny. We're going to make a pitch now, audience. Bear with us. Sweeney Todd, though, if you all don't know it in the audience, you should give it a watch, is a Stephen Sondheim musical. And he's not everyone's favorite musical creator or entity. He has a really incredible style. But you don't like him?
No.
I love him. I think his plays are just alive. They're musically monstrous. They're incredible and so hard to do and to do well. But he writes characters that are unrivaled in the musical realm, in my opinion. Sweeney Todd is a real story based off of a murderous barber in London back during like plague times, who slit the throats of politicians and things, and was trying to create social justice, but through murdering people. And a woman, Mrs. Lovett, who I should very much like to play, who Angela Lansbury originated. She baked them into meat pies. She was an impoverished woman trying to get by in a very hard existence and time. And she owned a pie shop. And this is a true story. He would murder people and they would take their bodies and process them and use them to make meat pies, which she sold to the common man. It's a gruesome tale, but it's a very, very cool musical. I don't know if the Majestic audience could handle it, and that is a challenge, but it's awesome.
Okay, there you go, Zoya.
That's my pitch.
Zoya, since you're tuned into this, I think you should join me in a couple of weeks and be a guest on Behind
That's
the Curtain.
Great idea.
We have a few things to talk about, so we'll convince about that if you like.
Lovely.
Well, thank you very much, Myka. Have you got anything else you want to add?
No, just that I appreciate you having me, Danny, and I appreciate the Majestic audience. I think there's a lot of beautiful work that happens at the Majestic, and I think it's a real gem in West Springfield. So I'm grateful to be a part of it.
Thank you very much, Myka. Thanks for spending time with us tonight. And thank you to all of you folks who are watching. Once again, if you know of anyone who might want to revisit this episode, you can get to it on our website. It'll be there in a few days anyway. And all of our Behind the Curtain things you will find on our website, as well as the children's theater productions. Next week, once again, Elvis will be in the building or on the computer or whatever. Ray Gilmet, our friend Ray Gilmet's going to be here. So that's going to be terrific. Carly, where are you?
Yeah,
here she comes.
Right.
So I guess we're signing off.
Yeah. Sorry to be the party pooper, but we're running out of time for tonight. But yeah, same time next week. Thank you, Danny.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.